He's finally going to sit down here. He's been wandering around for a couple of minutes trying to decide where to sit. It's just a nice park, and he wants to make sure he sits somewhere where he feels like he got the most out of the view, or the breeze, or the area that he could. Like if he could pick anywhere to sit in the concert venue, he'd feel pressure to pick the best spot, or at least a really good spot. Guess it's a fear of missing out thing. I wonder how many other people have the same feeling when they come into a park. Maybe most people, without thinking about it much, just sit down. Anyway, it's already afternoon. He's actually got plans for later, but for now he's just doing what he's been doing all day. They woke up pretty early this morning. He never went back to sleep, so he tinkered with the host's acoustic guitar for a minute, and he got out a little bit earlier than he has been. And for breakfast, he ended up stopping in a local place called Yours and Mine Jerk and Juice Center Incorporated. So he's sitting outside somewhere with his food, and maybe 10 feet away, there were two young girls, like early 20s, standing, having just an egregiously loud, intimate conversation, like they were the only ones left in the entire world. So like a casual but serious conversation. So he wasn't really listening that closely, but at some point the conversation had moved on to some hookup that one girl had recently had. And at some point, she's feeling in her purse and try to give you a somewhat cleaned up version. She says, in all seriousness, why do guys tap on the top before sticking it in anyway? The second girl looks at her, and as if she were legitimately upset that her friend had forgotten a lesson they had just learned in school yesterday, she says, in the thickest Brooklyn accent, "You always knock before you enter, dummy. Don't be stupid." And within a second or two, their conversation had turned to like where their missing friend was or whatever, and they had walked away. Sorry, I'm suddenly wondering if that's where the term ding-dong came from. Anyway. Have you ever seen someone say something funny? Like 8 out of 10 funny. And the person or the people they're talking to, they laugh and yeah, that was really funny, okay. And then the first person follows it up with something that's 10 out of 10 funny. You'd think the second person would laugh even harder, but they don't. They're stunned. Their face starts to droop, and they kind of almost like step back or like lean back a little bit, and they just stare at the first person. The 10 out of 10 joke completely changed everything. It's like this grave moment, like this heavy realization hits them that this person didn't just say something funny, and we move on. This person is doomed to spend the next 20 years in a dark, disappointing, cigarette-filled life pursuing a career in stand-up comedy. And for some reason, that's like record scratch moment heavy. I'm not sure exactly what grave revelation we're supposed to have about those two girls, whatever, There's probably one there somewhere. For sure, actually. But anyway, for the next 45 seconds or so, Thomas was that stunned person, just continuing to eat his food, and the girls had already walked away and everything. And all of a sudden, he realized that conversation was the greatest thing he had ever heard. Like, ever. In his life. With his ears. He even stopped eating for a second. Anyway, he decided to just go ahead and spend the whole day listening. So just listening to people or whatever. And he conceded that this would officially make him the worst vacationer ever, but he was okay with it. And so that's what he did this morning. He rode the subway. He walked. He even took a couple shared car rides, which actually gave him another perspective on the enormity of everything. Obviously, he wasn't expecting to ever top that gem from those young ladies, but he figured it might be interesting. In fact, when he was on the subway, he realized there were actually a lot of people that he assumed were native New Yorkers that not only had no content filter, but absolutely no volume attenuation dial either. And at first, he was trying to figure out where that came from, because it's such a unique thing to hear. And he figured maybe it had to do something with growing up around like so many people and like so much noise, that maybe in order to feel heard and feel seen, you had to be loud and be expressive. You had to have a big personality, or at least bigger than average, or bigger than the next person. And he realized he couldn't quite figure that out without studying it, really. But then he realized, well, maybe it spoke to something even broader than that. Maybe they weren't talking as if no one else was in the room. Maybe it was the opposite. Maybe they were talking like everyone's always in the same room. Everyone's on your lap. Everyone's in your face. Everyone's inside the same head. So there's really no disconnection between you and anyone, so what's there to hide? He stopped thinking about it when he felt the ghost of Aaron on his shoulder, scolding him. So he ducked into a XXX shop and beat off on the floor. That's not true, but he did imagine that. And that probably would have made her proud, actually, so that was enough to get her to disappear off his shoulder. But anyway, what he did see was a guy cruising down the street on roller skates with a stack of books in his hand, reading one of them. Like comfortably turning the pages. He saw a guy sit next to him on the subway that had a little portable boombox that he had turned up all the way. It was really small, actually. He never saw the actual volume level, but he was sure it was turned up all the way, like louder than the little box could handle. And the whole time, the guy was really engulfed in a news article on his phone. Just checking the news. As if the idea that everyone else in that car wouldn't want to listen to what he was listening to just wasn't even a thing. Thought that was amazing. He saw a couple arguing. I don't know where. He was in all kinds of neighborhoods, but all over the place. So he saw a couple arguing. The woman was threatening that if the guy didn't have the balls to do it, her words, she was going to ask him to marry her. And that was going to be the best day of her life and the worst day of his. Because he was never going to live it down. You notice there must be some sort of requirement where every dog in a particular neighborhood has to be of a certain breed. Like in some neighborhoods, you can only have a rescued mutt. In the neighborhood he's staying in, like all the dogs have to be pit bulls, apparently. Like 100%. And that can't be a good sign. It got him to thinking. With so many people in such like little tiny apartments, it seems like torture to have dogs like locked up in there all day. He figured at least once per day around here, actually probably 1,000 times a day, the owner would come home at like 2 a.m. and stumble through, drunken anal with some strange asshole. And the dog has no choice but to just sit there and rue its own highly acute sense of smell. Like 6 feet away, if he's lucky. You figure there should be a midday radio show for dogs to call in and get some things off their chests. Called Rescued for What? Sometimes throughout the day he'd have his earphones in, but not necessarily like put on any music. Just for another perspective on things. And other people's conversations were still pretty entertaining, even if you couldn't hear or make out what they were saying. Because of that, or because they were too far away, or whatever. Actually, he's got him in right now. He's getting a call from back home.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, how's it going, man? Yeah, you know what? I screwed up. I screwed up pretty bad, actually. The thing's gone. I was sitting on a park bench. I had it right next to me. I was transferring some pictures, and I guess I dozed off for a few minutes. And, it was gone when I woke up. Right. I kind of vaguely remember you saying something about that, but to be honest with you, I was barely paying attention when you were going over that stuff. Really? You mean like the exact location? Like within how many meters? Huh. Wow. So, really? So even with like the general location of the stolen property, they just don't respond, really? I mean, obviously they could find more stolen property. They could find like a bigger criminal operation. I mean, if you were detectives, I mean, what more would you want than like somebody providing you with the location of criminals, basically? I mean, what does the embassy say about that? Did they just like give up or? Yeah, great. Really? So, like, even if you took, excuse me, even if they took the battery out, you're saying you can still wipe it remotely? And when you do that, does it cut the beacon to the LTE or the beacon to the cell tower also? Shit. And how much longer before you do that? Well, what if I can get it back somehow? I'm saying, is it possible to hold off on wiping it for like a day or a couple days? Or how long do you think it would take to get permission? So what do you think? There's like 10% chance they let me do it? And then how would I trace it? Like you would send me, is it an app or like a login to something? Or? All right, yeah, just any amount of time they can give me. I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Get the stupid thing back. But I don't know if Simi told you, but all her honeymoon pictures are on that thing. She doesn't have a backup. Yeah, well, I appreciate the effort. Just let me know. Thanks, man. Later. Well, that's interesting. A beacon that shows where the laptop is on a map. Pretty incredible. I mean, exactly what he would do with that, it's not clear. Especially if the police never really bothered to help. Well, he's not going to get his hopes up. I mean, they're probably not even going to give him access to it anyway. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was. Yeah. Yeah. No. I just. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah. I've been told I wear every little thing on my face there. Yeah. Guess you were getting a little bit of that. Yeah. That's what it looks like when I can't figure out what's for dinner. But thank you, though. I appreciate it. He actually wasn't sitting far from where he saw that woman in the lab coat yesterday. I don't think that was by accident. I was wondering about what time that was. Kind of looked like passing through there was routine for her. Maybe. He does feel a little bit embarrassed by it. There's a whole wild city to see, and you're going to go back to a place you've already been, on the off chance that a woman you know nothing about, that you saw from really far away yesterday, might walk through today around the same time, and that you're going to see her. Well, he figures much crazier things than this are done every day in the name of maybe. I mean, in the future you would kick yourself for not at least trying, right? If there's a 0.5 chance something good comes out of it, I guess any guy should take those odds. It still feels weird to him. Probably came through here. Not necessarily, but probably. Either way, I mean, he figures if you stared at any one particular spot in this town, sooner or later you'll see something interesting. I mean, if you were looking for a pair of albino Siamese twins, sooner or later one of those will come through. You never know.